Please can you remind me, if you'll be so kind, staring out into space, asking God to hear my case, trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? The purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. This is Lori LeBay, the host and founder of Alzheimer Speaks, and I'm coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee, where I am at Abe's Garden, and we're going to be talking about this newer community and the fascinating things that they are doing down here. But before we get into that conversation, we're always getting new listeners, so I just want to let you know what Alzheimer Speaks is all about. And bottom line is we're an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. We believe the only way we can do this is by sharing forces and joining our knowledge plates together and having everyday conversations about life with dementia. In doing this, we're able to increase awareness and remove stigmas attached to memory loss and help people dealing with dementia, not just those diagnosed, but those caring for them as well, continue to live with purpose. At our core, Alzheimer Speaks believes collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia. And I know that it's working because of all of you. You see, your likes, your clicks, your shares with your Twitter tribes, your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn colleagues, your Pinterest peeps, has gotten Alzheimer Speaks named the #1 influencer online according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. And what excites me about that is when we share information with all these extended people in our sphere of influence, we are making the discussion about Alzheimer's and dementia and caregiving a norm. And we're removing the fear. So many of us have people in our sphere of influence that we don't even know are dealing with this disease because people are so embarrassed to talk about it. They're afraid, they're ashamed. And so I urge you to continue to like and share not only the radio show, but our webinars called Dementia Chats, our blog, and as well as our main website, Alzheimer Speaks, where people can get attached to everything. I'd also like to give a shout-out to the Caregiver Alert Center, known as the CAC. They are just doing a great job, and they just launched a new website that is very easy to utilize, and they work well if you're worried about maybe a loved one wandering or eloping. Very reasonable cost, but they tap into social media and can distribute flyers, work with the police, etc. So just to let you know that. Also, you might be listening and thinking, hey, I got a story to tell. Well, here on Alzheimer Speaks Radio, we like to raise everyone's voice. So maybe you're a person who's diagnosed with dementia. Maybe you're a family member or a researcher or an advocate, a musician, a playwright, an author. We want to hear everyone's voice. Maybe you're a community like Abe's Garden doing some cool things that you want to share with the world. We would love to hear that. So just go to alzheimerspeaks.com and you can go ahead and hit the contact button and reach out to me, and we'll connect and see about having you on as a guest. Now today, like I said, I have been so excited about coming to Nashville to actually see the development itself. Abe's Garden, this campus is unbelievable. And we're lucky to have Judy Shmerling Givens with us, who is the Director of Campus Development here at Abe's Garden. She began working with her brother Michael and his team back in 2006 to develop Abe's Garden in memory of their father, Abram Shmerling. And their family story is so significant and is making such a great impact, not just here in Nashville, but really around the world in terms of how they are approaching this disease. The idea that they came up with was to create a nurturing and innovative community that provides new hope for families that are dealing with Alzheimer's and other related dementias. And I can tell you they have done just that. So welcome to the show, Judy.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for all you're doing to help raise awareness and help people connect to services and new ideas to take care of their loved ones with Alzheimer's and dementia.
Well, this has been such an honor to be with you guys, this past 24 hours here and learn and to actually physically be able to see and touch your community. I had your brother on and Andrew on back in the day when you guys were still raising funds and the property wasn't built yet. And it is absolutely incredible, hands down. From what I've seen, and I go around the country looking at a lot of places, it is just unbelievable. I mean, it really is a standard of excellence, and so I can't wait for you to kind of share your story a little bit more of why you approached this community the way you did. Can you give our audience just a little bit of background? People always like to know what got you started on this mission, what brought you into the realm of Alzheimer's. Can you tell us a little bit about your father?
I sure will. My father was a physician. He was raised in Augusta, Georgia, and he went into the Navy, and he came to Nashville to study medicine. And as he was growing up, I knew that my grandmother was aging differently. I had two grandmothers, and they were aging differently. And we look back on it now and recognize that his mother was living with Alzheimer's. I don't think they had the diagnosis at that time. And later on, his sister also developed Alzheimer's, and that's what his sister and his mother both died with. And that was 3 out of 5 in his house. So when my father started to develop the symptoms, both because he was a physician and had been a family doctor and knew what Alzheimer's and dementia was, he knew what was happening to him and what was kind of coming down the pike. And because his descent was around 10, 11 years that we know of. Often when you have very intelligent people, they can hide it in the earlier stages. But we know of 10 or 11 years that he was declining, and trying to find the right fit of services at the different stages was really a challenge for us. And here we did everything I think most families that I speak with now are doing, which is you try to bring in services into the home, you try to find the least secluded type of environment you want to have him in. We had him in assisted living, we had him in adult day, we got him a driver, we got him a personal care person, and ultimately he moved into a memory care community, and actually several memory care communities because we didn't find a really good fit. And I think that journey for us, we knew was not unique. We knew of many people that were having the same struggles and really believing that there was a better way that care could be provided. I credit my brother, Michael, who was just really brilliant at pulling together resources and people and a really good idea. And he was the one that decided, I'm just going to build it if I can't find what I'm looking for. And that's what set us on the course to start designing Abe's Garden. And we actually had a piece of property that we wanted to build on and started talking with folks about what Abe's Garden needed to have, what it needed to be the best. And my brother was really had done a lot of research, and he had recognized that a lot of the other major killers of people from illness were declining. The heart disease, stroke, and cancers and HIV were all declining, and Alzheimer's and dementia was skyrocketing, in part because people were living longer with the treatments for those other illnesses, but there was also a piece missing. And for him, that piece was the relationship between a major medical university and a care community. And that's what they had done to bring the statistics down on some of these other diseases. So he joined forces with folks at Vanderbilt. He had an advisory council. we began looking at programs around the country to find best practices. And that's what got us on the right path. We found a lot of wonderful communities all over this country doing great things. The piece that was in common with all of those was the person-centered care. And we brought to our program a wonderful dining program from Connecticut and a bathing program from North Carolina. There's a pet therapy program from Texas and an engagement. What do you do with people all day? The I'm Still Here from Hearthstone from Massachusetts. All of them were person-centered care, and all of them are in operation here in this community, and we're doing research to determine if these are best practices.
Well, it's fascinating because I hear so many times, people are checking out what other communities are doing and trying to bring pieces back. But you guys are really implementing things in a different light. I mean, you really have taken kind of this 360 look at the impact of each discipline that you're bringing in, down to training, to furnishings, to staff patterns, to that true engagement piece, to observation. I really have never seen any community do what you're doing here. And so when you bring all these things back, and a lot of people talk about evidence-based, can you tell people what you're doing to have that evidence-based proof of these engagement features and how you're analyzing that and how that's working for you?
Sure. That term evidence-based is a very global term. When we started to design our program, we knew we didn't have to invent the wheel. We brought in programs that were already evidence-based. They had been tested, and there was some research to support that they were best practices. But, even the best practices, if they're not implemented the same, it's going to be different. So we have hired a full-time continuous quality improvement person. Our person is named Chris Coelho, and he's been amazing. He has a background as a caregiver, so he knows the work specifically as a caregiver, and he also has a research background. And part of what he does is a tremendous amount of observation. And we have certain measures that we have been watching since the day we opened, and there's new ones coming up as a need arrives. So, for instance, if we had noticed that we had folks that were losing weight, we started to measure the meals, how much of the meal, what percentage of a meal someone was eating, especially those that were losing weight. And if they weren't eating at least 50% of their meal, we would offer them something else, or we would make sure we were giving them enough one-on-one support at mealtime. And in one situation, we had a gentleman that we noticed was only eating soft foods, and it turned out to be a dental problem. And through that observation, we were able to get him to a dentist and get that problem corrected, and he began to eat and gain weight. So that observation can be critically important, both in terms of the care that you're providing as well as to identify training needs. If there's an area that we want our staff to be doing and it's not happening, it helps us identify what those barriers are so we can address them. And if we find out that what we're doing, thinking it's a best practice, turns out to not be a best practice, we will change it. I mean, the broader goal for Abe's Garden, beyond giving fabulous care to the 42 families that live here, residents and their families, and to have a great program for the staff, is to clarify what are those best practices and then to disseminate that model. It's not our goal to have one really great community. Our goal is to influence how care is being provided across the country or even the world, is to say, this is a best practice and you too can do this. And that's really the broader goal for Abe. So we are working to look at the environment of care. There will be other people, we hope, that are researching brain imaging and the development of medications and treatments. Our focus is on the environment of care. and that does mean your caregivers. We call them care partners here. We know that you have to have longevity. The best practice is that you don't constantly change staff on people that can't remember and form relationship well. So we have to take care of our staff. We have to have innovative compensation model, and we have an innovative staffing model, and they participate in the engagement programming because we think that's going to help with the relationship with the residents, and we think it's going to help to make their jobs more fun. They're not just taking care of bathing and dressing and activities of daily living. And again, we'll do research, and if we find out that's not correct, we'll make changes. But that's our approach.
Well, and I like that, and it sounds so basic that you would think, well, if it's not working, of course, people are going to change it. But that really isn't the model out there.
Right.
You know, a lot of people, you just get into this routine. It's the way it's always been done. And that's such a critical aspect, because when you open the mind, you open the heart to new ways. And I think the creative flow in terms of being able to connect with people just blossoms. Can you talk a little bit about your staffing and how you do staff training? Because I find this just really exciting, too, because you're taking a very different approach from most in terms of how you're doing staff training.
Yes, I mean, the staff training is a big piece of this. You know, we feel like the care partners and all the staff that are over at ABES need to be the highest on the totem pole, not the low man on the totem pole. They are the ones we have to honor and we have to support, and we have to make this the place that folks want to work. So part of that goes back to your compensation model, and we're testing out a model where we're doing a 45-hour work week, which is very innovative. It is planned overtime. And our hope is, or our expectation is, that in order to get your 5 hours at time and a half, you have to show up for your 40, which is, we'll hope will cut down on the call-outs. The planned overtime is already scheduled in so that it's not asking somebody to rearrange their life to stay late because someone called out. It's scheduled. So they know when they're going to be working a 9-hour day, 5 days a week, for instance. But by getting that time and a half for 5 hours a week, you get into a much better pay scale, which is more of a living wage. The other thing that we did was to establish a career ladder so that it's not a dead-end position. In a lot of communities, if you're a caregiver, that's what you're going to be. What we've done is we have the core training that every employee is going to have, where they learn the basics about dementia, and they learn, the basic information that we think everybody, customer service, and what our philosophy is. But then there's a career ladder, which every employee has the opportunity to move through, and the training is going to give them more and more skills, and upon completion, the quality improvement and the trainer and some of the management team are going to be doing observations to have them demonstrate these competencies. We're not just giving them a test after the segment. They don't come in for a training and watch something for an hour and then we say go do it and hope they're doing it. We're going to be observing for those competencies, and once they demonstrate the competencies after completing the training, they move up on the career ladder. And that would come with an increase in pay. So there's a motivation to work your way through the training modules. And we've got right now a level 1 career ladder and a level 2 career ladder, and we're continuing to develop. We've also got positions of mentors and lead care partners, so they can begin to demonstrate their leadership skills and develop their leadership skills and be able to move into a role where they're helping train the new staff. So it's not a flat line position. There's opportunity for engagement higher up the career ladder. And we hope that will motivate people to stay.
Well, to me, it's and even just meeting your staff here. I think I shared it with you that it's like everyone's got a smile on their face, everyone's engaged, both residents, staff, and family, and that's really rare to see everybody be so connected. And it was really nice to see, needless to say. But I think you're really building a community and a family base that says we can make a difference, and each of you is incredibly important in that mission. And when you empower staff with that, they're going to believe that instead of, this is your job and you're limited to just doing this, and no, we don't want to hear from you. I really hear and feel from you and your staff that there is this open door policy in terms of exploring possibilities to really be the very best and to truly engage. I hear the word engaged, constantly here versus this is your job, and that's a big difference in culture, community culture and statement of why is somebody there. So I think that's just so beautiful, because I think it's very much needed. People want to feel like they have purpose, and I think you're giving your staff that ability to feel purposeful and not just show up for a job, but that their job really matters. And I would imagine, and it sounded like from Andrew when we talked last night, that your turnover is way less than the average bear out there, and I would imagine that has to do with they feel engaged, they feel a part of this community, and that they're valued.
I hope that is what's happening. I mean, that's our aim. We've been open a little over a year, so we still have, we have in our minds what this will look like, and then we have our reality, which is way better than anything I had ever seen, but we have ways to go to really fully reach our potential. But one of the things I love about the way this works with the staff is, when we have a challenging behavior from a resident, we have a process that we do that's part of our training through the Hearthstone model, the I'm Still Here model. But we sit down and we really look at the behavior and we say, well, when is it happening and where is it happening and who's around and when doesn't it happen and what do we think might be driving that behavior and what are some ideas? And it's the staff who are generating these ideas. And they come up with 5 or 6 things to go try, and then they go back to this resident and they try these things, and then they share their successes so we can all do it. That's where the creativity of this work comes, and that's what gets me excited to have the opportunity to say, if you found something that works, share it with everybody, because we want to make sure that we can all do it. And that is empowering your staff to find those creative solutions. And we do huddles where they can talk for 10 minutes on a particular training issue. If there's something we want to work on, how we invite them to an activity or how we physically approach them, or on mouth care, whatever the topic is that we've noticed needs to be addressed. So they get that 10 minutes where we give them some things to try, or they tell us what they're trying and what's working. So I hope that that's the experience for them, that they feel valued, because otherwise you're just a really pretty community. If you don't have the staff really feeling like they have something to offer.
Yeah. Can you explain to people just the physical layout and design? Because that took me back too, and in a really nice way. But it's so open, so spacious, so. I think I shared with you. It just has good juju. You just feel no matter where you are, there's like no hidden crevices. It's just everything just feels really good, and it's so open. The lighting, the coloring, the furnishings. I mean, it's kind of incredible. The gardens, the walking paths, and how you have set up your 3 different kind of neighborhoods in here very purposely and intentionally. Talk about that, because it's fascinating.
Sure. Well, you hit on a lot of the major points. When we started to design the physical building, it was really a wonderful opportunity to have a blank slate and design for your purpose, as opposed to converting an existing assisted living and putting a lock on the door and saying you have secured memory care. So there was a very nice luxury. The other luxury we had was the market crashed when we started raising money, and we ended up with 7.5 years to work on our design. So we had opportunity to really think about and be thoughtful about the decisions we made. And a lot of the lessons were learned from our own experiences with my father and his sister, the different types of environments that we had observed. So the things that we really wanted, we did not want folks to feel locked in. We wanted a sense of openness and freedom of movement so that they didn't feel like they were in a prison. And I heard that term, mink prison, from a family that had their dad in a community that was very swank and beautiful, but he referred to it as his mink prison. And I definitely didn't want anybody to feel that way. We wanted it to have a residential feel, a very nice home, very contemporary kind of feel to it, but lots of open space with access to the outside. We didn't want them to feel like they couldn't be outside when they wanted. So we designed a space with 3 distinct neighborhoods, but they're all connected, and each one has program areas that fit the theme. So we have the music and movement household, which is our largest, and has a big open space for large group activities so we can have music and dance programming in that space. But within it also, as you mentioned, there's lots of places to be, and there'll be something to catch your attention and engage you. We wanted to have this sense for the residents that wherever you are, it's where you're supposed to be, and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know, I've had folks say, well, it's so big, how do people know where to go, and don't they get lost? But the truth is, if you're wherever you are, there's somebody will invite you to be engaged, or you'll see something that catches your attention, like the aviary or the conservatory, or you might engage with the cat or the art studio. But there's always something to catch your attention and to engage you. The second household is the smallest of the 3. It is our connection to nature. In each household, the artwork will reflect the theme of the house that kind of helps with the wayfinding. And there's subtle changes as you move from one household to the next. The lighting changes, the flooring changes, the coloring changes. So you know that you're in a different space. Everything is not cookie cutter. But you can have lunch in any of the households, and you can visit friends, or you can go to programming in the different households. The third house is the arts and lifelong learning, and the art studio is there. That one has 13 residents. Each household, the focal point in each household is the kitchen, living room, and dining area. That's where people tend to want to hang out when they're at home. They can observe the meals being prepared. They can smell the food cooking. I think when we walked through, we smelled brownies or cookies being baked. We did not want an institutional smell. We wanted it to smell like home. Being able to smell the toast and coffee and eggs and bacon cues you that it's time for breakfast, and it stimulates your appetite. So we wanted to have those cues in the environment and to make it feel like home. We wanted lots of natural light. We wanted minimal sense of long hallways that have doors on either side and feels very institutional. So those are some of the things that we incorporated. Each household has a front door that leads to the courtyard, and that's the door families come in and out when they come to visit. And those doors are not locked to the residents. So if the family member's leaving through that door, they are free to go in and out those doors as well. So the whole environment is self-contained, but has a feeling of great openness and freedom of movement.
It really does. And even with kind of some of the main doors, you've almost hidden them. So, you know, for some residents that want to go home and are always looking kind of for the great escape, it doesn't even come to mind because there's so much activity and so many opportunities if somebody just wants to sit quietly or if they want to be involved in an activity or look out the window or, I mean, there's just so many different things that you don't really look for that great escape versus, you know, I think in some places it's in front of residents and they know that they want to leave. It doesn't feel like home. They see people coming and going, and why can't they come and go? And they have that, you've got that enclosed, beautiful patio with, really it looks like a full kitchen and a fire pit area and art and things for kids to play on. And I mean, it's just, it's designed so nicely, and you can look out the window and really see it all in a glance. So, if somebody were, let's say, missing on the floor, you could see in 2 seconds if they were outside, and you already know that they're in a safe area, that's an okay area for them to be in to begin with. But just to be able to enjoy nature, I think is such a big plus. And one of my favorite people who has dementia, Harry Urban, out in Pennsylvania, and I quote him all the time on this, but, he talks about sometimes we get so occupied with trying to keep somebody busy, we don't just let them be. And and he would love it here because he loves gardening. He loves to listen to the birds and smell the flowers and feel a breeze on his face and the sunshine on his skin, and he would just adore it here because that's home. That's what he likes and appreciates. And I know when we were talking, you had mentioned that you really try to get people outdoors, at least once a day if possible. And, it probably isn't for everybody, but you guys seem to have a really good read on that, or even, your flexibility with meal times and things like that. So it is more home-like versus rigid and structured.
And that's a good balance to try and find. People, we really believe that engagement is the antidote to a lot of the distressing behavior. And when I say distressing, I mean for the resident, for the person with dementia, feeling agitated and anxious and that I'm supposed to be doing something and I don't know what it is and I don't know where it is, but it's got to be out that door because everybody's coming in and out. That feeling is not comfortable for folks. They want routine, they want familiarity. There's comfort in knowing that they're where they're supposed to be and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we want to have plenty of opportunity for engagement because that stops that exit seeking. When you're engaged in something, you're not looking for a way out. You're not obsessing on when's my daughter coming. You're busy. It's in those moments when you're not engaged that you're going to start going down those habitual thought patterns. That's your default position is, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home. And a lot of folks, they're home and don't know they're home. So it's what home represents. So you want to keep people engaged and you want to invite them, but you also want to allow those quiet moments. And some people love group activity and some people are isolated. They like to be alone. They like to just sit and think or be outside. So you have a lot of invitation and you have a lot of flexibility because that's what being person-centered is about.
Yeah, and I think the term person-centered, in my opinion, is overused and understood in terms of the depth of what that really means. I think sometimes person-centered can be, and I've seen this where I feel it's superficial, and it really isn't a depth of connection. And I what I saw here in just the short time I was here, I not only saw but I felt a depth of connection. That this is really a gathering of friends. The way staff approached it, it wasn't a job, it wasn't lecturing. They seemed to really enjoy being here and being part of this community, which is a big difference. From what I see sometimes when I go out and about. Can you talk about your club? Because I think that just the verbiage that you use and what the club is a real brilliant stance in itself.
Well, thank you. Our club is our adult day program, and we called it the club because we understood that as an adult, we didn't want to go to daycare. That has such a negative connotation for an adult. But to spend a day at the club is something that people will do and enjoy doing. So we designed our adult day program, which we call the club, so that we were able to meet the needs of a broader group of people. Again, we were limited to 42 residents in the community, but the adult day program allows us to have folks that are still living at home and perhaps in that transition where the families are feeling like they need structure and they need programming and stimulation and socialization, but I'm not quite ready to move them. And so they will join our club. We have 5-day-a-week and 3-day-a-week options. And the 3-day is either Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So actually our club is 6 days a week. And the participants come for the program day, which is 9:30 to 3:30 in the afternoon. And around 10 o'clock, once the residents have had their breakfast and they're mostly dressed and ready to start the program day, the club members become part of that activity. So some of the residents will come to the club program area, and some of the club members will go into the households and join whatever is being offered. And we offer different programming for different levels of functioning based on kind of their cognitive abilities, their physical abilities, mobility. And so we have, and this is from the Hearthstone I'm Still Here model, but we have our Discovery group, our Vitality group, and our Serenity group. And that, for us, is how we identify folks that are in that more cognitively able, verbal. They can plan and organize and do activities like they've got a newspaper called the Gazette where they decide what the articles will be. They do the interviews. They write the stories. They take the photographs. They do the layout. And they're able to, with some support, to do those things. The garden club for the Discovery group will design where the different flowers go based on the height that they're going to grow to. The Vitality group are more mid-stage. They need more support and more structure. They may have more language problems. The garden club for them may be watering the plants within the community, helping start the seeds in the garden and help things get planted, and harvesting. They designed markers to put in the garden. So there's lots of opportunity. And then for the Serenity group, which is really more of the late stage, we'll have programming for those folks that's going to be more sensory. Mm-hmm. So their garden club may be smelling the lavender that we grew and making sachets and making lotions that we incorporate some of the herbs, and then using those for hand and foot rubs. So at every stage, there's a way to adapt the activities for everybody. And our club members are pretty much going to be in that Discovery to Vitality group. We expect that if they were still at home that they'd be a little bit in that higher functioning, earlier stages. And so they'll come into the households and they'll participate in the Vitality programming or the Discovery programming and mix evenly with the residents. So it's been working really well.
Oh, that's nice. One of the things here that I wanted to talk about was even just your furnishings in the room. The cabinets that can lock if it's a problem, chairs that have patents pending. In your bathroom, you have handicap accessible things, but they also can bend and lift up if somebody doesn't need them. I mean, I was just amazed at all the different little things that you've come to make life easier. Can you expound on some of those?
Sure. We've had some wonderful partners, as I've said. We worked with a company called Furnished Living, and they were designing a new line of furnishings for our suites that were specifically designed to ensure safety and support independence with our Alzheimer's memory care residents. So every piece has features that are designed to meet those goals. We also charged them with designing these furnishings at a price point that was comparable with any other furnishings that you would be putting into a community, because their hope is that other communities will bring these things in. So we are the first agency to have any of their furnishings. So we were able to give them feedback both in the design and build of it as well as in testing it. So you would see in some of these, if you go to the Apes Garden website, you'll be able to see some of the suites and see some of these pictures. But they've done things like with the bed, they inset the base so that but they're solid, so you can't be stuffing things and losing things under the bed, but it's inset enough that they can't stub their toe. We're not allowed to have guardrails because that's considered restraint. So they designed this really lovely sleigh bed looking backing for it so that they have something to push up on to get out of the bed, as well as something to help them stay in. A lot of them wanted to have their beds against the wall because they felt more secure, like they wouldn't fall out. And so this gives them a little bit of that security without making them feel trapped or locked in. The bedside table has a night light at the base of it, so it lights the way to the bathroom, which is in view of the bed. So it's going to direct them if they woke up in the nighttime and had to go to the bathroom. The glider chair is a lovely, comfortable glider that has a patent pending on the mechanism that locks it in place when you go to stand up. So it stops gliding and gives them a really solid base to use to get themselves up. The cabinet that you mentioned, the wardrobe, we designed it with a magnet clasp. It's a catch up at the top that we don't have to engage. And if you don't engage it, the doors will just open and close. But we have found that you will encounter some residents who are overwhelmed with too many choices. And what ends up happening is all their clothes end up on the floor, or they end up putting every piece of clothing on at the same time. And that ends up taking a lot of time for the staff to try and help put the room back together. So one of the things that we wanted to test was to be able to have the panels magnetically close so that, and there's no handle, so it doesn't appear that there's a door that's supposed to open. My dad used to get frustrated pulling on a handle of a locked door. That he felt like it's supposed to open, and that frustrated him. But if it doesn't appear to open, it just looks like a solid panel, and so you could have where only one panel would open and have two choices of clothing so that they could successfully select and not be overwhelmed. There's also a place on the front of each of the drawers where you could label what goes in each drawer, that this one has your underwear and your shorts, and this has your socks and pants. So it was really to help cue them, and again, that's to help them be more successful. In the bathroom, you mentioned the handrails that can be lifted up and put out of the way or lowered so they can get themselves up. And that helps the staff be able to assist if they need it. And if not, then they can use it themselves. So again, these were all things that there's pocket doors. We found that some people wanted a door that shut to the bathroom, but we didn't want to take up half the wall with the door that opened. So they designed it with pocket doors. There was just a lot of thoughtfulness, I think, in how the rooms were designed and laid out.
Yeah, it was amazing to see, because I saw the bed and I thought, oh, that's a nice bed, and then you said, well, this is why, and then it was like, oh my gosh, every nook and cranny, everything in here was really thought about. It wasn't just we'll pull a designer in and we'll make it look pretty. It really had to be functional on a very detailed level, and I think that was incredible that you guys took the time to do that. And it's wonderful. And the views, the openness with the views is also something so impressive too, because everything is light and bright no matter where you go, and the space is so opened. For the most part, and the rooms are down the hall, so once you're out in that area, it's not like they're calling you to come back to your room or, because there's just so much offered for someone to be engaged. And then same with staffing, too. All the staff seem to be very personable with everybody, and really, I just really kind of felt the love from your staff, and that they really knew the people that they were interacting with, and that's pretty cool too, because everybody was calling people by name, and it's been a very fun experience for me to be here. So I really appreciate you sharing.
Thank you. I'm glad that you were able to experience that while you were here, because and that has been the experience. For me, having conceptualized this and thought about it and planned to see it open, and having the residents here and the staff and seeing it being realized. They talk about a dream come true. It is so gratifying. And I'm glad that when people come to tour, and I do the tours with folks when they want to come and see the community, I'm the one that tells the story and takes them on the walks, and that's the feedback I pretty consistently get. They can feel a difference.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, when I talked with your families this morning, I kept saying how lucky they were to be able to have this in their community, because this is not the norm. I would love for it to become the norm, and I'm thrilled that you guys are open to sharing all that you've learned and all that you've done with other communities, so that they can start incorporating things. If it's through what I want to say, through renovation, or if they're starting from scratch. I just think that it's so much easier when we share our knowledge. And again, that's something that is starting to change here in dementia care, but for so long everybody was so siloed, and I think it still is, to my personal liking. We're still more siloed than I'd like to see it. But changes have really changed how we are approaching things. And even when you said, it took 7.5 years for you guys because of the market crash and changes, in some ways that was a gift, because I think dementia care has come really a far way in just that 7.5 years, or in the past 10 years. There's been so much that's changed, and so you had, as much as you didn't want to wait, you probably were able to incorporate things that didn't exist or weren't discussed prior.
Absolutely.
By having that extra time.
Yeah.
Now, can you tell us if what is the one thing you're the most proud of in this whole process, or that has filled your heart the most?
Wow. To pick one thing. I that is so hard, because there's really so much that's coming together. We have a very strong team, and I think that the team is, especially at the management level, you have to set the tone, and I think that our team is doing that. That's how we're able to bring these wonderful care partners onto the campus and keep them, and to keep the innovation, to keep listening to our staff and to our families and to our residents, and be able to be responsive so that we can implement these best practices, and then determining if they are. So I'm very proud of that, but I'm also proud of the process of disseminating this model, and we still have a ways to go. We're never going to call the program done. This is never, so whether it was 7 years or 10 years or 15, there's always new things that we're going to identify and say, that looks to be a best practice, let's try it. And that's what's going to keep it fresh. And and we've got new things coming. We really want to start building our community based for folks that don't live here, and how do we help people who are not going to live at Abe's Garden but live in rural areas or want to stay at home. How do we help share what we were learning that works with folks that don't live here? So that's what the future holds. But there's an awful lot that fills me, with great pride and love.
Yeah, your dad's just got to be smiling down on you guys, going, good job.
Yeah, if there's something good that could come out of living with dementia and dying with dementia, this is it. This is, for me, I can't think of anything that could be more gratifying.
Wonderful. Now, in terms of next steps for you guys, what do you foresee in the future?
Well, want to keep looking for best practices and be able to implement them. We are continuing to work on the research. I hope that we will have bigger research projects happening as we form alliances with other communities and other educational institutions. We've gotten a lot of interest in doing that, and then maybe even being a training ground. That's something where people would come and learn with us and train with us and be able to take what we're doing back to their communities. Or if they're building, to come here before they build and get ideas that they would then implement. And just last week we were at the Leading Age Conference, and a lot of people were stopping by our booth to talk to us about our design and about the furnishings and about the programming, because they're working to build or to renovate. And so, I think that we want to keep being on the forefront of these best practices and then disseminating that so that we can help elevate how care is provided and across the communities. We're certainly applying for grants and trying to continue to raise the funds to help us meet those goals. And then, as I mentioned, certainly the community-based piece is coming down the pike. That's the next project I get to work on, in addition to helping families find their way to Abe's Garden. But, again, we knew the impact of 42 families at a time was a drop in the bucket to the need. So our goal was much larger, is how do we have a bigger impact? And that's going to be through research and through disseminating the model and doing this outreach.
Okay. Well, wonderful. Well, again, I can't thank you enough for sharing Abe's Garden with me today. It's just to be able to get to know your staff and finally be able to see your community and meet some of your residents and families. It's really been an honor for me. And I will be talking you guys up as I go around the country speaking with people, letting them know the difference that you guys are making and your willingness to share what it is that you've learned. Oh, I know what I wanted to have you mention was the packet that you gave me that people can get online in terms of what to look for in a community. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. I'm so glad you remembered to ask me. Yes. We have worked, one of the partnerships with Vanderbilt, we've worked with Jack Schnelly and Sandra Simmons that are with the Quality Aging at Vanderbilt, and they got a grant from the Pat Summitt Foundation to develop a guide for identifying a quality memory care community. And we help by printing those guides, and we give them out to people when they tour and when they come by, and we give it to other communities so they can use this tool to look at a community objectively and to compare. So it identifies what quality should look like, what to look for, who to talk to, what questions to ask, and most importantly, what are the answers that say this is a quality community? And we certainly set our standards using this tool, and we're sharing it and telling other communities that people will come and ask these questions and be looking for these things. So we encourage communities to evaluate themselves and elevate their own responses, look at their own practices and see how they're measuring up to what quality looks like. We do have a link to that on our website at abesgarden.org. So anybody that wants to download it from abesgarden.org, and they could probably contact the Pat Summitt Foundation to get copies as well. So it's a very valuable tool, and I'm glad you remembered to ask about that.
Yeah, well, I was so impressed with that, and I can't wait to pass that on to our Roseville team in Minnesota, because we're talking about, educating families on that, and it's like, oh, that would be perfect to be able to point them to something that already exists instead of recreating the wheel. So, well, Judy, I can't thank you enough for your time and your graciousness in terms of hosting me here and letting me feel a part, because I just feel like part of your family here.
Well, we loved having you.
And I really encourage people to check out Abe's Garden. And you can go to abesgarden.org to get more information. And, if you're a family in the community here, I'm sure they would love to give you a tour. Or are you touring professionals as well who are interested in seeing live what you're doing? Are you guys open to that as well? Okay.
We are. We do organizational tours, and as long as it if we get too many demands, then we probably will ask for, do them together. We try to not take more than 4 people at a time through the community because it can be disruptive to the residents there. So we're not wanting to bring a group of 15 or 20 people through at once, but we definitely can bring communities and other professionals and folks in the community that want to see what we're doing. And I think that's part of our goal to disseminate.
Great. Well, again, Judy, thank you so much for your time and your family's efforts in truly making a difference in the world of dementia care. I can't wait to see more people here and physically see what it is you're doing here. And again, feel free to call Abe's Garden and get a tour if you're a family. If you are a professional, they would love to meet with you and share what it is they are doing. You can go to abesgarden.org, or you can email Judy at jgiven, that's GIVEN, at abesgarden.org. In wrapping up the show today, I just want to, again, thank everyone for listening. Please share this show. This is powerful stuff that is going on, and it's so uplifting in terms of our dementia care culture. You can also check out our blog. We've got some recent articles on there. One has to do with Haley Richmond, a little 9-year-old who has won the Hasbro Award for her work with dementia, which is really exciting. And we're also going to be putting on the blog this week a new film called Fragile Storm. And it's a very powerful, dramatic piece about the unknowing in dementia care. Look for our dementia chats as well. You can just go to alzheimerspeaks.com, and you can find all of our latest radio shows and our videos with the dementia chats that are up there, information on speaking engagements and all kinds of different things. So again, thank you all so much, and have a brilliant week. And know that our election will be done soon, and hopefully we can get on with a good life here in the U.S. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Bye.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now, this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.